Hi, and welcome back to The Current. This is Pastor Chris Nafis, pastor of Living Water Church. And today we've got a very special guest, Monte Mansfield, who is a former professional baseball player. He played mostly in the Astros system for 10 years, but struggled along the way with addiction. Ended up coming to marry someone we know in our church very well, Laura Davis. And together they've had an amazing journey of recovery and call into ministry. Monte shares his story in this conversation with us, his story from childhood, dealing with addiction in his family, through growing into a professional baseball career, the struggles with drugs and alcohol, and eventually his journey out of that into recovery and into the Lord's will. So enjoy this conversation. I hope you find it filled with hope and joy as Monte himself is. Here it is. All right. Well, Monte, thank you for joining me. I'm really grateful that you said yes to come on the podcast. It's been a joy to get to know you, to follow your story since I met you through Laura, and just to see you kind of begin to thrive, not only in life and in marriage, but in ministry. I'm excited for you. So welcome. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Pastor Chris. And I remember when I had first met you, you guys were doing your services outside. And our common denominator at that point was baseball. You were a baseball guy. And I want to say you grew up in Ontario or?
Chino, yeah. So because you're San Bernardino, right?
I was in San Bernardino, and I was sharing with you how I had played ball down that way. And I think we actually kind of knew a couple of the same guys from the area or what. So yeah, it's such a pleasure to be here. You did our marriage counseling and all that. So it's just an absolute pleasure to be here to share my story and share the good news with all you guys.
Yeah. Well, you're someone who just gives me hope and joy, and just your life. You're like filled with just like joy. You call yourself the neighborhood hope dealer, right? And it's like a fitting description because that's like what you bring to the table. But I'm hoping today that you can just share a little bit with us, with people who are listening, about like how you came to be where you are now, which I know is a journey that started way back when, mostly with baseball, right? So how'd you get, like, when did you know you wanted to become a pro baseball player?
So for me, when I was born, my grandma put a Super Bowl in my hand that said the Dodgers. So my family loved baseball. My family loved the Dodgers. Sorry, San Diego fans, but for me, a big moment that I remember when my whole family was together, and my family had been broken by addiction and drug abuse. I'm talking about aunts, uncles, immediate family. But I remember when I was younger, we got together, and I remember the day that Kirk Gibson hit the home run in the World Series was like the last time I remember my whole family together in the living room, just like really happy and joyful. And obviously the addiction. I've had 2 cousins that passed away from overdoses. I've had a few aunts and uncles. Just addiction's been really bad within my family, and I was kind of the last one to kind of get into addiction. I got more into my addiction when I was like 21, 22, but for me, growing up, I love sports. I love playing sports. I love basketball. I love baseball. I love football. And I had a natural ability to be able to slow the game down, which was like really awesome. Like when a lot of people, when the game would get big, or the championship games, or when things would get tight, a lot of people speed up. And I was just able to really slow down, and I was able to really execute in pressure situations. And I gained a lot of confidence from my sports. I was able to play hard. I'm not a fighter. I'm not a guy that goes around and picks fights, but I could play hard. I could play aggressive. So when I was in the moment of battle or in the moment of competition, I felt confident. I felt strong. I didn't feel weak. And it was like an escape for me. But as we all know, during that time growing up, I never walked with God. I never had been introduced to God. So for me, sports was like my God. That was like my idol. It was like everything, the tell-all, end-all for me in my life. And it was just an ability to escape. And then like the neighborhood I was in, Astoria, the people loved me. I was getting like a lot of notoriety. People loved to watch me play. It was exciting. So I was getting a lot of things coming from outside influence that were kind of giving me the confidence on the inside. For me, my father, and he's clean and sober now, and he's retired, and he's doing great, but he was on methamphetamine when I was younger. And any of you guys out there that know that, that you have a family or a parent that is on that type of drug, the behavior is very odd. So when you're growing up and you're in a normal life, and both your mom and dad, they're normal, right? They're following the Lord. They're doing things that are right. The household makes more sense. But when your father's going to bed at 3 a.m, waking up at 3:15 a.m, going to work, and he's 6'8", he's really tall. So like the behavior, the size of him, It made me kind of want to be away from the home a lot, and that's why I love being out in the on the outdoors, playing sports, out throwing the ball against the garage, hitting balls to myself, playing pickle, whatever I could to be away from my house during that time was just very important to me because it was very, very confusing back at home during that time. But like I said, my father's doing good now. I'm very proud of him. He's retired, and I'm just very thankful for him and his recovery. He had to leave the whole area. He went up to Seattle, Washington, and he left the whole area that he was in, and he's never came back. So he and a lot of people do that. Some people do have to leave the whole area. The thing is that you end up taking yourself with you. So you do have to be able to change the inside because you can change your circumstance. But if you don't change the inside, you're going to bring the same circumstance around you.
Right. So sometimes like those transitions can be helpful just to get a fresh start. But yeah, if you don't do the inner work, then you're just going to start the same seeds of the same thing.
I could, that was my big main idea, and I'll get into that a little bit later, was that I was able to, if I got out of baseball, I would be able to get clean, but you take yourself with you.
Right. Right, because like baseball, so what I'm hearing you say about your upbringing with sports in general, because you're a multi-sport athlete, there are a lot of really great things about sports, right? I mean, it teaches you discipline, it gives you a sense of worth, like it puts that competitive edge in you, and you learn how to work on the skills, it teaches patience. I mean, there's a lot of really good things about sports. But if it becomes like this obsession in a way that, like you said, it becomes like an idol, it becomes your God, then it can be a downfall. And especially if you get so, and we'll talk more about your story specifically, but if you get so driven by success in sports that you start messing up your relationships and, using to get better at sports. I don't know if that's what you were doing or not, but, some people get into like steroids or other things. Like there's lots of ways that you can wreck yourself sort of on the altar of sports. But that doesn't mean that sports are all bad, of course. So like how did you kind of end up picking baseball? Yes. You're a pitcher, right?
Yes, I was a pitcher.
Yeah.
And I ended up, so I love basketball. So I love basketball. So, cause it was like the tip off, right? And then if you played as hard as you can, you'll always be good. Like you'll never be singled out. You'll always be a good player. And I love that about basketball. Now, baseball, it ain't the same, right? So you can play as hard as you want. You can still strike out 3 times. You can still walk 15 guys. It doesn't matter. It's a very, very difficult sport, and it's a game of failure. So mentally, you got to be able to bounce back, and you got to have a mindset that you have every day to understand. And for me, it was like, if I just went out there and I played one pitch at a time and I didn't let nothing bother me, at least I would be able to go to bed at night knowing I gave everything I had, and I would be able to wake up in the morning and I'd be able to live with myself. If I would allow outside influences to affect the way I was on the mound, I would give up 6 or 7 or 8 runs. You can noticeably see the difference, and you would go to bed at night and you just felt like less than, right? Yes. But for me, I love basketball, but then my junior year, I grew like 5 or 6 inches. So I'm 6'4". So I was a little shorter. I played point guard, right? All that. My whole life, I was a second baseman, shortstop, pitcher. I was a little bit shorter, but my dad's 6'8", right? So next thing you know, I had a growth spurt, right? So my fastball goes from 83 to about 90 miles an hour, and I'm now a junior in high school. And now I'm sitting there and I'm getting attention from scouts, from area code teams, from travel ball teams, amateur teams. And my mom was a very good athlete. She was a really good volleyball player. She had almost gone to the Olympics, all these things that she was just really, really good. She had a lot of drive. So for me, when I was in actual junior high, she would pick me up from school and we would drive all the way to Palmdale to play for the Palmdale Mariners. We'd drive down to Long Beach to play for the Long Beach Breakers. We would just drive to play on the best teams. And my mom would do this. She was very, very dedicated to get me to where, we were trying to go at that point. And my junior year, I grow to 6 inches. I get onto a scout team. I start to pitch really good. I start to really fall in love with pitching because see, my sophomore year, it's crazy. Like when you're younger, for you younger guys listening, like when you go through a growth spurt, you really get uncoordinated. So I couldn't throw a strike, and I was really like funky, and I was struggling with all that. And then all of a sudden, like something happened to where like I got my coordination back, and I started throwing strikes, and I started throwing hard, and I started really falling in love with pitching, when beforehand I really didn't like pitching. I threw hard. I had all the stuff to do with the good curveball, but because of the whole point of like not throwing strikes, it wasn't fun, right? So my junior year, I get invited to play on this team called the Area Code Games, right? And it was the Angel Scout team. And I end up going down there, and I'm just like, still, I live in Hesperia, California. It's a smaller town. It's not like, I didn't realize like how good I really was at that point. I just kind of was like the best player in my hometown. And I just, it's a big world out there. You don't realize, so I came down and I played in this area code games, and I got the opportunity because of a few injuries to be able to pitch on a Friday night versus a Dodgers scout team. So it was like the freeway series of this whole area code game showcase. We had Josh Hamilton there, Josh Beckett, Albert Pujols. I mean, it was like the top players in the nation were there. So I went down and played in the area code games, and we had like ball players like Josh Hamilton, Josh Beckett, Albert Pujols, some of the best players they played in the big leagues, right? Future Hall of Famers, right?
Albert Pujols.
Yeah. I remember he was playing third base, same big guy, right? And he was on the St. Louis. He was like from the St. Louis area. I know he played for the Cardinals, but he was like from that area. I know.
He's playing. He's not watching. He's playing.
No, yeah, he's playing in the game, playing third base. Yeah. So, and then Josh Beckett, I remember Josh Beckett was like 96 to 97 miles an hour. And the thing about back then is that, and I'll share more about this, but like he was very arrogant. Like you could just see the confidence like within them, right?
They know how good they are.
You're 18 and you're like throwing 96, 97 miles an hour. I mean, it's just a tremendous gift, right? It's just unbelievable, right? So I end up, because of a couple injuries, I'm able to pitch the 8th and 9th inning of that freeway series game versus the Dodger scout team. If these injuries didn't happen, I would have been pitching on the side fields down in Long Beach at Blair Field. Because of the school I was from a smaller area. They wanted more of our big time prospects to throw on the stadium at Blair Field. But because of some injuries, I was able to get out there. And I remember standing on the mound, and I remember looking in, and there was just like hundreds of radar guns. And I just really didn't realize what was going on. I had such a good streak, and I was pitching so good. And I went 2 innings. I struck out 5. I was 90 to 92 miles an hour. Had a really good curveball. And I remember after the game, me and my mom went and ate dinner, right? We're happy. We're celebrating. And when I got home, we didn't have cell phones, but I remember the answer machine was blinking. And I walked over and I pushed it, and then my life was changed forever. Hundreds of messages from college, NAIA, Division 3, 2, 1, right? Cal State Fullerton, University of Miami, pro scouts, just everybody was now, I was now on the radar.
Got your break?
I got my break, and and at that point, like when I look deep down and I be honest with myself, like I was like, I'm going to play pro baseball. Right. And a mistake that I made, which really, really haunted me later, is I put school on the back burner. So I started like not taking my school very serious. I started just really working on my baseball career because I was going to sign. I was going to go first round. I was going to go second round. I was going to get all this money, right? We start to get these grandiose ideas in our head. And I ended up my senior year pitching really, really, I went like, I think 13-1. But what's wild is the first game of the season, we were playing down at the Ontario ballpark. I don't know if you know where they filmed A League of Their Own. There's a John Galvin Park right there. So we played there, and I end up going. I remember, man, I'm driving down there to that game, and I'm listening to Whiskey in a Jar, Metallica, and I'm all fired up, man. And I remember standing there before the game, warming up on the mound, and there was like 60, 70 scouts around me, right? And they're like, oh, he looks a little heavy. Oh, he looks a little this. He looks a little that, right? They're like judging me, right? And I'm sitting there like, and I got nervous. And I got nervous that day, and I went out there and pitched like 4 innings. I hit a guy in the face. I walked like 6 guys, and it was a really, really bad outing. I did not seize that opportunity. And now 2 days after that outing, I'm now pitching against Upland. I'm 93 to 94. I strike out 9 in 3 innings, and there's 1 scout there. He's an Angel scout, right? It's just the luck of the draw. So the whole year I'm kind of battling to getting the scouts back to see me because of that first outing where all those guys were there. Hesperia, California, it's very cold, windy. Scouts don't truly like to go up there and watch baseball, right? So I'm battling every day. I'm getting like 15 to 20 scouts a day. And I remember, so the season ended, we won the championship, and then all of a sudden I got drafted in the 11th round. So I went in the 11th round with the Cleveland Indians. And at this point, I was like ready to sign. And I had, just to mention, I signed a full ride with Cal State Fullerton, so which was like my dream school to go there. Coach Horton was there. And it was like my dream, but like I said, I put school on the back burner, so I didn't do well. It was a really bad decision by my part. So if anyone out there is listening, man, take your school serious. It's very important to have that type of backup plan because it's very hard to get to the big leagues. I heard someone share with me that if you took a baseball stadium and you filled up like 25% of it, that would be all the Major League Baseball players that ever played the game. That's how much people don't make it, right? So, and it was very hard on me later on when I was trying to exit baseball because I knew I had no college education, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life with an ego and prideful of being a guy that made it to AA, right? Made it to almost to the big leagues, and like now trying to go back down and have to maybe work a job at the bottom, right? Start at the bottom somewhere. So anyways, I got drafted by the Cleveland Indians, and then I did not sign. I went to Riverside Community College 1 year, and I went 14-1. I won pitcher of the year. We won the national championship. It's the state championship at Riverside Community College. And then because California is so big within JUCO that we have our own state championship. We don't have like the National World Series. So, which is, it's held somewhere else, but they have their own little World Series. But we won the state championship. Team was awesome. I ended up getting drafted in the 16th round. Now, I dropped 5 rounds earlier, but I had asked for money up front. So I ended up getting a decent amount of money at that time. But like they say, a blessing too soon isn't a blessing at all. And I had no type of foundation or no type of anything to be able to handle that type of money. So I was offered, I signed for $120,000, and that's when my pro baseball career started at that point. So, and like I said, for me, as far as we go into the addiction part of my baseball career, was I didn't do drugs or alcohol. I didn't use none of that stuff. Going all through high school, all through college, I was like on point, ready to go, ready to rock every single game. No drugs, no alcohol. But when I think back, it's because I was always good. Like I was always good. I never had to face failure one time. And I made baseball my God. But if baseball is your God and you're always good at it, right? It's great. It's a great God, right? So I'm sitting there like I'm living a great life, right? I had my high school sweetheart at this time. I thought I was going to marry her. She went off to school at Cal State Northridge, and I stayed over here in the Riverside area. And then as I signed pro baseball, man, then it's a different ballgame now. So life on life terms happens. Me and my girlfriend, who I thought I would be with for my whole life, right? High school love, right? We end up splitting up. She's at Northridge, she's in a sorority. There's partying going on. I'm playing pro baseball, right? To where things happen, to where I end up like not understanding the situation, and I start to drink because I start to get anxiety. I start to get worry. I start to, like just the things that like life on life terms, they start to hit me. And I started to drink after games, not only because everyone else was doing it, but also like for some reason, like, and it's crazy when I share this, but like for 5 minutes, I felt good. Like I literally like would start drinking, and I swear like 5 minutes, I felt great. And then it felt terrible. And then you're hungover, and then you're miserable, and then you're making mistakes. You're making bad decisions. You're doing all these things, and then you don't have the Lord with you, right? So you have the shame and the guilt and all these things that are building up within you. And next thing you know, like I gravitated toward an athlete in pro baseball, like the ones that partied hard and played hard. So that's where I started going, and then my identity started becoming that type of person. So when even if I would try to change who I was, I would get right into spring training, and all the guys, Monty's here, let's go, baby, let's hit the bar. I created an identity through baseball that I would, a couple weeks, I'm changed. 15th day, I'm back partying again because I created this identity through professional baseball. And during this time, I was able to go out at night, and I was able to party, wake up in the morning hungover or what, but I was young. I was a young man, and I was able to still perform every day because I still had my purpose, which was to show up every day, 7 o'clock, somewhere on the planet, put my glove on, have my baseball, put my cleats, someone paying me because I can do it, right? And I've had to be able to perform every night at 7. So everything geared up, because 7 o'clock was so important, everything geared up to where I had to be ready by 7. The game would be over. I'd be out partying again. I'd be up in the morning. I'd be ready to play by 7. Every single day, right? I didn't know that I was an addict. I didn't really think I was an addict at that time. I was just kind of doing what people did. We were playing pro baseball. We were young. We were going from city to city. We were partying. Everything was great. But then at 28 years old, I made a horrible decision. And I share this because I share this part because I was making $6,000 a month, right? I'm still believing that I can make it to the big leagues, even though I'm partying and all that. A lot of guys are doing that, right? The thing is, it's like glorified in that lifestyle, right? People think it's cool. People think it's fun. But I'll tell you that the ones that, if I could have figured it out earlier, it would be the ones that like were walking with God, the ones that were going to the chapel, the ones that were continuing to put God first in their life back then. And I used to walk into the locker room. That's why this is such a radical change for me, because I would walk into the locker room and I would see the guys reading the Bible and I'd be like, yo, look at this dude, right? Like, come on, bro. Like, this is weak, naive, right? But deep down in my heart, it was all because like I used to think if I had to, I was going to have to follow all kinds of rules and it wasn't going to be fun no more. I was basing everything off more religion than more of like the relationship, right, that we have with Jesus. But for me, 28 years old, going to the stadium, a nice truck, Tundra, right, making $6,000 a month, nice condo, still believing that I can be in the big leagues. The dream is still alive, right? I show up to the stadium and I start to notice that the older guys on my team, they would party at night, and then the next thing you know, they'd be all hungover, and then right before the game would start, these guys would be like, let's go, man. They'd be all awake. And I used to think to myself, man, what do these guys got that I don't? And they would be all fired up for the game. And I'd be like, man, what did these guys got? And I remember sitting there and I was a little bit hungover that day. And I asked my teammate, I said, hey, man, what do these guys got, man? And he handed me a 30 milligram Adderall. So this is for the first time in my life that amphetamine touched my body. And like I said, I would never do crystal meth, right? My dad was weird. My dad was crazy, right? Like that's the dirty drug. That's disgusting. Look at all these people you see, all these homeless people, right? All these things. I would never do that. But the devil deceived me by putting it in this medication called Adderall that everybody was getting on because they were saying they have ADHD. Now understand, I grew up through the steroid era and I played through the steroid era. So they were cracking down on certain types of substance. So if you would fail for amphetamine, you would get a 50-game suspension. But because I had the prescription, I was able to bypass the suspension, and you're able to. It was the loophole that everyone figured out. So what's wild is when this happened, it went from maybe 100-something pro ball players prescribed Adderall to over 1,000 something within a couple weeks. They found a loophole, right? And the thing is, I share about, and you guys listening that know about drug abuse, is that it disguises itself as heaven, right? And it takes you straight to hell. They're always talking about that. Oh, you're always chasing that first high. Well, this is very true, because if your body has gone your whole entire life, right, and you never touched the drug amphetamine, right, or you never touched the drug heroin, the next thing you know, it hits your bloodstream and it goes into your dopamine, which is your reward system. It boom, right? It blows it up. You feel great. You feel amazing. And when I say it disguises itself as heaven, is because we have a God-shaped void, which I know now that can only be filled by God, right? If I'm trying to fill it with all these worldly type of things, anything worldly can walk away, can disappear, and it can leave you, right? God is something that can be within you your whole entire life until the day that you pass away, right? But the thing is, the drugs for maybe a week, they make you feel great. And you're like, man, I need this. To where I look back in my life, in hindsight, that was the day that I went from I can make it to the big leagues. Yeah, I'm hungover. Let's go. I can still play. I can still make it. I can party hard, play harder. To where literally the moment it hit my body, my spirit started seeking amphetamine. And it wasn't about baseball anymore. It was about, now I had to get this one thing that made me feel the way I had been trying to feel my whole entire life. That night I remember standing on the mound. I can count the grains of dirt. There was 30,000 fans. I'm counting the grains of dirt. I'm focused. I strike out 10 in 4 innings. So that's 12 batters. I strike out 10 of them. I go out that night, drink all night, wake up, no hangover. And I'm suited and booted 2 days later in front of a psychiatrist. And I'm now prescribed Adderall. And I needed it. And it took me down. Now we're looking 28. I got clean at 37. So you're looking at 9 years of chasing this amphetamine, right? Chasing this drug. And for me, the first year, it was I'm just taking a medication that I'm prescribed for because I have ADHD. This is great.
Trying to trick yourself.
You start to trick yourself, and I can't help but look in the medicine cabinet, and I'm looking in the bottle saying amphetamine salts. generic amphetamine salts. That's what Adderall is. And I'm like thinking, man, this isn't amphetamine, right? But you don't care. You're just doing it. You're doing it. But then the next thing you know, you're trying to take it. You take it in the morning because you like it. Now you're taking it before you work out. Now you're taking it before you party. Now you're snorting it, right? Now you're like full blown using it as a drug addict, right? And now you're full blown. Now you got a doctor in this city, a doctor in that city, this doctor. Now I'm walking across Mexico when I'm playing down in Yuma with amphetamine pills strapped to my body, walking across the border with a bottle of alcohol, tell them, yeah, we just won the championship, right? I got all these amphetamine on my body. I mean, dude, if you're that type of behavior, I would never do sober, right? But because I'm such a fiend for this drug, it's took me down such a bad place in my life. All I do is need it. It's literally like my whole life is about now. And I went from 28 years old playing, affiliated baseball with the chance to maybe get to the major leagues to where now 28, now 31, 3 years later, playing in Canada, 6'4", 185 pounds, going from 92 to 93 miles an hour to now 84 to 85. I'm like a sidearm pitcher now. I'm in Canada. I'm doing Oxycontin to go to sleep at night. I'm taking Adderall, smoking weed all day, full-blown junkie now. And it only took 3 years for this downfall to literally just take me right out of the sport, right? Next thing you know, I remember thinking to myself, Chris, man, if I just quit baseball, right? I could get clean, right? I could just, baseball's the problem. The lifestyle's the problem, right? But also you got to understand what I shared about earlier. I'm thinking in my head, I don't know how to do anything else. All I know how to do is play baseball. I don't have an education. Like, do I want to scrub toilets? I don't want to do that.
Right, you're like getting paid for this, right? And this is your livelihood. So
my whole livelihood. And which is wild, Pastor, is that we on Thursdays, 5 of us guys that I used to play with, we do like a Bible study. And I would have never realized, but every one of them, even the one that was super godly, that loved Jesus, Josh Anderson played in the big leagues with the Braves and the Braves, a couple other teams. But he had a horrible transition from when baseball was over to where he didn't like fall off the deep end, right? He stayed in his faith, but he talks about how like, dude, I had to literally like die to myself because I wanted to be in the big, I was giving up the thing I love, right? And I had to trust God that he was going to carry me to the next part of my life. And all of us, every single one of us had situations where after baseball, we all reached a really bad point of desperation to where we came to Christ, right? We came to the Lord, which I'll share with you guys later. But any of you guys out there, a lot of I don't want to compare it to like a military guy coming back, but it's kind of in the sense that like you've done this your whole life and now you're like trying to transition like into the real world. And it's like very, very difficult to do because you've like almost got to like vice presidency in this like amazing hard profession. And now like you're expected to like everyone's telling you, yes, hey, can I get this? Yes. Can I get that? Yes. Can I get this? And next thing you know, like now everyone's saying no. It's like, what? No, I don't need to hear that. Right. So for me, I end up, after that long career of baseball, right, 10 years of playing, of going from city to city, hotel to hotel, condos, houses, all that, I remember going home and I remember sleeping in my room that I grew up in. And I remember seeing a banner on the wall, Monte Mansfield, that I was like, when I was like 12. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, bro, like I'm in my childhood bed. Like, this is crazy. This is crazy. And I felt like a failure, dude. I felt like a failure. I felt like a loser. And I just felt terrible. And so I started gravitating to the bar. Started running into old people that I used to think were super cool, but I couldn't hang out with because I was too dedicated to my sport, right? But they were doing terrible. They were still partying, right? But I thought they were cool because back in high school, right? And I gravitated to doing methamphetamine. And then I got hooked on the methamphetamine. And then I started crime. So my addiction got bad and I became homeless. I became homeless out there, and all because I didn't want to get a job, man. I wanted to ride a bike around. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I thought I was free doing this stuff. Like I didn't want to listen to people. I didn't want to listen to authority. And I did work at FedEx for a little bit, but I hated going every day to clock into this box on the wall and then leave and come back and clock into this box, right? Like I just couldn't handle it because my whole life had been like this journey of like playing baseball and traveling all over the place, and so I ended up becoming homeless in Victorville, California. And I lived down at the river, which is crazy because at first I'm like, I'm just camping. I'm camping, man, right? I'm just camping down here. This is great, right? And I end up committing crime to feed my habit. First, it started off doing the stores and stealing from stores, telling myself that, I'm not stealing from people, I'm stealing from companies. Like whatever I'm doing to justify what I'm doing in my life, right? So to be able to just walk outside of the store with all the merchandise, man, it's a scary thing to do. You don't know who's watching, you don't know loss prevention, right? So for me, I gravitated towards using the needle. And I could tell you this, Pastor, that before I got on the needle, that like I could feel a connection, even though all the drugs I was on, I could feel like that God was always deep down inside saying like, come home, son, like come home, right? I could feel it, man. But when I got on the needle, man, it was like gone, like crump, like literally like you're totally blocked off from God at that point. And that's how it went. And I was on the needle for 6 years. So it was like totally like I could at times try to like seek a feeling of God and it just wasn't there. Like it was totally blocked off and I think that's the darkness that when you get as become an IV user, the darkness that you go through at that point. And also you got to understand, like I was at the end of my road. I was at the end of my road of using drugs in a way like snorting, smoking, all that, to where I thought I was done, burnt out. I hated it, and then when I tried the needle, it like catapulted,
pushed it back in. So you were like almost done. You were almost ready to be quit, but then the needle kind of gave you this boost of like, oh, it's a new thing.
New thing. 6 years later, right? First year, I'm not going to get too deep into all that, but the first year, you're able to get high, right? Next thing you know, your veins are running from you. You can't hit. You're poking at yourself. You're in the bathroom for hours. I mean, the most miserable existence that you can have, and you're getting abscess. Like, I mean, it's absolutely insane.
Can you see that? So like, this is what I've heard from a lot of people who have gotten into heavy addictions, what I've read about, like pretty miserable, like the whole time, right? Like it's not even enjoyable to use anymore. Like maybe, did you feel like you had any self-awareness about that? Or how did you gain a sense of like, all right, this isn't working?
So it was like I share with people, like wake up every day and put a needle in your arm to be the person that you hate.
Yep.
Right. So for me, it was like, so during my baseball career as a pitcher, as a reliever, I used to have to really train myself to like, forget the past. Right. Every day, forget the past. I got to pitch tonight. And I believe that like, it was weird. Like in my addiction, I was really focused and able to just like live in the moment. And I was able to get like the decisions. I was just moving forward. And it was times to where, there was times where I would wake up at the house I was at, and I would have no drugs, and I would lay there all day praying that someone would knock on my door and get me high. Like just the area that it takes you to, the low, right? Like I was prom king. For me in my life, like if you hit on my girlfriend, man, I'd be like, bro, like, no, you're not going to do this. Right. Next thing you know, the drug has taken me to such a low in my life that like, I'm allowing my girlfriend to cheat on me. Right. Like, and I'm too afraid to confront the guy. Right. And I'm like totally like just this shell of a man. And the only thing I can say is that like, you become a liar. And when you're a liar, your spirit gets weaker and weaker and weaker, right? When you get in recovery, your truth, you become honest. And that honesty, it starts to build you up and make you stronger. It's crazy, those two types of things, the direction this will go and the direction that will go, right? And you're sitting there and you've lied to so many people, and the devil has fooled you so much, and you're pushing away anyone that you should be bringing towards you, right? And you're bringing towards you the bad things in life. And next thing you know, you're sitting there and you're waking up in an existence where you literally brought everything bad into it, and you're miserable, but But in your mind, you think if you don't have the drugs, that you're going to be even more miserable. So you go and you seek this thing over and over and over again because you're just trying to get high for 2 minutes. And then you got to do it again. Then you got to do it again. And the thing is guys, if anyone out there, if you're listening right now, and I promise you this, that the mind is going to make you think that the come down is 100,000 times worse than when you actually just step out and you do it. Because I got arrested at 37 years old and I went to jail and I was so worried about coming down. And I literally like slept for 3 days. Like my last time when I had got arrested and I did the 90 days in jail, like it was the beginning of my sobriety from this time. So that was 5 years and 3 months ago. And when I look back on it, it was like those 90 days, it was like a college dorm room and I'm in jail, right? But it was like a college dorm room experience. I had my bed right here. We had all the other guys around us. You can sleep all day, right? You're getting your food. Like it was a different experience than the other times I had went to jail because those times I wasn't done yet. So those times I'm sitting in there and I can't wait to get out. I got to get out, right? But this time, like I was going to go to prison, right? The other times I was site release. I knew I was going to get released, right? But this time I knew I was going to prison and I was so scared of prison. Like I was like, I'm not a prison guy. Like I'm just not, right? But they were so fed up with me, all these cases I was getting. And then I received a felony and this was my first violation that they were like, okay, like, you're going to go to prison. And I had to beg for them to give me one last shot. And they gave me the Salvation Army rehab, which is absolutely amazing. And for me, it was crazy because in jail, you started to hear people talk about the Salvation Army. There were people that got that last shot. They blew it. Now they were going to prison. There were people that were just hoping to go there. And I started hearing about this ministry inside of jail. And I'm like, man, like, okay, like I thought it was a thrift store, right? I thought it was a thrift store. And I ended up going 90 days. I got 90 days clean right there in jail, which I thank the Lord for that. I remember accepting God, not necessarily at this point Jesus, but I accepted God when I was in my orange jumpsuit and I was laying on the concrete and I was waiting there. And to go into my dorm, I said, God, I need you, right? I said, I need you, God. And I had reached a point of desperation, which is the gift of desperation, which is the acronym for GOD, right? And he was the last thing I tried. And he was the first thing that worked. And I started listening to that conscience that wanted me to do better. And I stopped listening to the one that like kept pushing that one off. And I just started to just little things, man, to start off with, because it's not easy at first, right? We have our old nature and now you're letting God in, right? You're letting Jesus in your heart, but you have this old nature, right? And I can only explain it as like this Native American proverb of the two wolves, right? So you got the good wolf and the bad wolf, right? And it's like whatever wolf you feed the most is going to end up who you become, right? So we want to be able to do the next right thing. And like I said, it's not super easy at first, but if you continue to focus on doing the right thing, and we know good and evil, like we know right and wrong. We do as human beings, right? We were made in God's image, right? So we know these things. And you start to do the next right thing. And then all we have is the moment. And then like you start to feel yourself transforming into like being the right thing, being a better person, right? And then I remember the judge saying, we're going to sentence you to 365 days in the Salvation Army. And she tells me, good luck. I'm like, good luck, right? Like, where am I going, right? So the moment that I get sentenced to this opportunity, the moment my addiction starts to tell me, you better get a ride there or you're going to go get high, right away. And this hasn't been in my mind for 90 days because I was locked in there. I knew where I was going to go, right? But because of the addiction, we suffer from an obsession that talks us into using, minimizes your relapse, gets you to put the drug alcohol in your body, right? This is why it's the hamster wheel. You put it in your body, it then maximizes it, and we suffer from what you call a phenomenon of craving, right? It's an allergy that gives us a reaction to where we can't stop. We need more, we need more, we need more. And I can relate to this because every time I would get clean, I would get out and I would put the drug in my body and I would be like, oh, I need more. And like you just get this crazy craving for it, right? So now through experience, I realized that I suffer from this, right? After I got to the ARC and I learned all about the It's the doctor's opinion in the big book. If you're out there listening, man, just read the big book, the doctor's opinion. They wanted to find out like a doctor's opinion on what addiction was about. And that's what they came up with. They said that you suffer from an obsession that talks you into using. You put it in your body, activates the phenomenon of craving, and then you can't stop until you're at another rock bottom. You get clean, you get the obsession, you do it again, and that's where the hamster wheel begins. And that's what continues to affect us. But I end up asking the judge, I said, ma'am, can I please get a ride to the Salvation Army? And she granted it. And I was like, thank you. I ended up going back. They call Monte Mansfield, roll it up. I get my stuff. They end up putting me in a cop car with these two young cops, which is crazy because I'm 37. And I think back now, Chris, and I'm sitting there telling people I played pro baseball. And I'm thinking to myself, like, now looking back, like, dude, these guys were probably like, bro, this guy's gone. Like missing front tooth, 170 pounds, right? Like this guy didn't play pro. Yeah, this guy's just making up stories, right? And and I look back and I truly believe that. But at the time, I was just trying to, my baseball career was something that made me proud. So I was trying to share it, right? Like I'm not just some junkie, right? I just wanted people to know, right? I had this, I just wanted, it was just the way it was when I first started getting clean, but I'm riding with these young cops and they're talking to me like, they're like 23, and they're like talking to me like I'm a little kid, right? And I'm like, they're like talking down on me and all this. And I'm like sitting back there like going, man, all right, this is crazy, right? So they hand me off over to the Salvation Army. And then I got into that program, man, and it was like, dude, it was like the thing I needed it my whole entire life because it's a work therapy program. So you wake up every day at 5 a.m. and you get with God, right? You get with the Lord. You have great fellowship. You have other men trying to get clean, and there's no women. It's just men. So you're trying to get clean. You're not falling in love with another 2-week sober girl, right? That you think you're going to run off and save the world, right? Like it's men, right? I was in there for a year. Now understand, no cell phone, no social media, nothing. So when I look back in my story, it was like God plucked me from society and put me in this amazing like bubble to strip me from the world. And he stripped me from all my bad habits. And I went in there for a year and I fell in love with the morning fellowship. I remember I read Jesus Calling, Sarah Young every day for my whole time I was in there. For that 365, I would read another. I just felt like that book was just talking to me, right? And I would just continue to get at the altar in the morning, right? And I would, this is kind of dimmed. Is it still, okay. Can I just touch it like that? Okay. And I would wake up in the morning and I would get my morning routine. I would get at the altar, right? And then I would go and work in a warehouse, right? And I was, we'd get our NA meetings in, our AA meetings in. We had church chapel on Wednesday, chapel on Sunday. And then all of a sudden about a month and a half in, man, it was alumni chapel and I'm sitting there and I still haven't opened up the Life Recovery Bible, right? I'm still kind of just talking to God. I still really hadn't accepted Jesus Christ yet at that point. I just kind of was like trying to do better, right? You hear a lot in the NA and the AA about a God of your understanding, about a God that you can do business with. And that's kind of where I'm at that point, right? I'm just trying to talk to a God like that like I've created in my mind, and he's talking to me and he loves me and all these things. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there and Kyle Carter shared the story of the prodigal son. And I said, and it was like, it's so weird. I share with people, it took I didn't understand the Bible my whole entire life. I wanted nothing to do with it my whole entire life. And all of a sudden, I broke down to a point so low that when God lifted me up, the Bible made sense. And I'm sitting there in the room and he shares the prodigal son. And I'm like, he talks about this kid, right? The son that asked his father for his inheritance, right? And I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, I got my money, right? My 120,000, right? So that makes sense. Like that's kind of like what I went through, right? And so then the prodigal son goes out and, at first everyone loves him and he's amazing. He's got the money, right? And as the money dwindles, right, it starts to get lower and lower. And then no one's around for him. No one cares for him till he reaches the pig slop. And I'm like, oh my God, like that's my life. Like I got out there, everyone loved me. Next thing you know, I'm in the pig slop. And then all of a sudden, like I came home, right? And I've learned so much more, and I've dissected that parable so much more now that I've as I've grown in my walk, and I can do so many types of different messages on that parable. But what Major Barnes shared with me that he loved about that parable is when the son was out there on his own struggling, that the father was always walking out to the edge of the property every day, right? Looking for him, hoping that he would come home. Everyone had gave up, right? But God, right? God was walking out there. And one thing he shared with me that I loved is that when the son decided to come home, the father ran out to the son and immediately put the ring back on, which gave him back his status, right? That we serve a God of total restoration, right? And I love that parable. And once I heard it, I said, that makes a lot of sense. And that literally is like my testimony in a parable. And I started reading the Life Recovery Bible, and it was this amazing Bible that relates the 12 steps with the Bible. And I'm like, it started talking to me. It started speaking to me. And I started falling in love with it. And I finally said, I accept Jesus Christ. I accept Jesus Christ in my heart. He's my Lord and Savior. Now I understand the Bible's a love story, right? That I understand the fact that that Adam and Eve, that Adam ate the apple, sin came in the world, and now we were distant, right? And all God wanted was to have his relationship back with his people, right? The 10 Commandments, they revealed our sin, right? They let us know that we were sinners. And then Jesus Christ came down, died on the cross, rose in 3 days. And now we're able to go through Jesus and have this amazing relationship back with the Lord. And I'm so thankful for that. And I'm so thankful for the good news. But I did 365 in the Salvation Army program, and COVID hit, right? So we were locked in there during the COVID time. And during that time, I was doing a lot of the messages, doing a lot of the meetings. I was kind of learning how to speak and get up on stage and do my thing. And I was able to do these things. And I used to tell myself, everybody was trying to get out and they wanted to leave. And I just was sitting there saying dude, I don't know what it is, but I feel like I'm going to come out of here on fire, right? I'm going to come out of here on fire. And I ended up graduating from there. And I ended up going down to the Bridge House. So the Salvation Army, they offer a Bridge House. It's like a continuance from the program to where you stay connected and you can kind of continue to get back on your feet, which is a great idea. So many people, they want to leave the program, and now they lost their purpose. They lost their community. They lost everything that they had, right?
Kind of like leaving baseball, huh?
100%. Yeah. Bro. And that's what I'm saying. I sit here today with you, Pastor, and it's I've stayed connected with the Salvation Army, right? I've stayed connected, fully connected with them. That's my family, that's my home, right? And I share with people, when you unplug, right, the light goes off, right? So you have to stay connected to those whispers of truth every single day. And I continue to go to the Bridge House. I continue to stay humble. Now, before being afraid to clean toilets, now I'm working at the bottom and I'm smiling and I got joy, right? I found joy in my journey through Jesus Christ because of the gratitude. Looking back from where he pulled me from, I'm able to get this emotion of gratitude constantly, which gives me the fire and the and the energy and the bravery and the courage and the boldness, right? To be able to share his good news. And I asked the Lord over and over, and he's revealed to me that my spiritual gift is to encourage others. So it's and it says right there in Romans, right? If your gift is to encourage others, encourage them, right? So this is my gift, right? And now when I look back, Pastor, it was never a baseball player. I was always the guy in the locker room getting people fired up. I was always encouraging others to where I was blinded. I didn't realize that this was my gift. But now I know this is my gift. And now this is a gift that I can wake up. And when I open my eyes, I can do it anywhere, anytime, any place. And I can take this with me until I'm 90 on my deathbed, encouraging the ones around me to not worry, but I'm going to heaven, right? So I found out my spiritual gift. And there was a time, I want to share this with you because I've never shared this with you, right? So during my baseball career, I was playing in Corpus Christi, and we were eating at an Applebee's, and I was walking out of it, and an older lady grabbed my arm, and she looked at me, and she said, and this is crazy because at the time, this was before Adderall, right? I was partying, I had nothing to do with it, right? And she said, "You're going to do something special for the Lord." She just grabbed my hand. She liked the way my spirit was. She was watching me at the table, who I was. And I remember this baffled me for years because I got on Adderall, I got on drugs, I got on heroin, all this stuff, right? But I look back now and it was like God was trying. He was trying to use her to get my attention. And then so that's one moment in my life, right? So then after I moved down here and I end up meeting my wife, and my wife starts telling me about your guys' church, Living Water. She loves your church. She is a part of it, had been a part of it, and just absolutely loves you guys with all her heart, right? And so you guys were doing outside services, and I'm sitting there, and it was during COVID, and I'm sitting there, and we're sitting in the back, and you did your service and everything, and we're sitting in the back, and all of a sudden, afterwards, we're kind of saying hi to people that are around us, and there was a family there from like North Dakota, like somewhere like Montana, North Dakota, something, and a gentleman, he comes up to me and he goes, God put it on my heart to tell you. He has no idea that I'm an addict or nothing, right? And he goes, God put it on my heart to tell you not to backslide, that he's got something special for you, right? I'm like, what? Okay. Makes sense now. It makes sense to me now, but that's a moment where, like, you know, I believe God spoke through that person to keep me going, right? And guide me into a whole nother direction. And now since that moment, right, I've been able to, like I said, shared, you know, I was sitting at a house that I was house managing at, and I had gotten out of that Salvation Army bubble now. I was now working at La Jolla Recovery, and I was trying to figure a way, because I used to do the devotions all the time, how I could share the message at any time or any place. And I felt God was saying, like, start up social media. And I was like, I haven't had Facebook in like 2 years. I don't even know what to do, right? I have no idea what to do, but staying obedient. That day, I went up to the park and I made a video on my YouTube channel. It's the Neighborhood Hope Dealer. And I was sitting in my car and I made a video, and I just started making videos. I started making videos, sharing the gospel, doing what I got to do, learning what to do on it, and God has guided me and taught me more, and do this and do that. And he's let me know. He says, you know, God shares with me, keep it pointing to Jesus, right? Just point it to Jesus and I'll do the rest. Just point it to Jesus, right? Don't get political, right? Don't do none of that. Just point it to Jesus. And I've had God whisper to me that, like, once you choose a side politically, you lose the other side for me, right? So apolitical, right? Straight down the middle, we're saving people for Jesus. And I've just continued to every day. And maybe, like I said, and like we were sharing in the beginning, it maybe did take an hour and a half to post a few videos, right? But now it's like 20 minutes, boom, 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 get it out there to the universe, share the gospel, pray with people on Messenger. And now I woke up today with 207,000 followers on my platforms, which is just incredible. So we're like, I'm able to share the gospel, and the momentum gets so big, and the momentum starts going so fast because you have so many followers now, and they share it and they do this, and the algorithm does this. And now the social media has found your niche, right? So in the beginning, the algorithm doesn't know who to send your stuff to. So they send it to everybody, and you'll get a lot of negative comments because you're sending it everywhere. But then once you get a big enough following, the algorithm recognizes who you are sending it to. And now you're like reaching that type of people. So whoever's on the phone pushing Jesus content, this, liking that, liking this, liking that. Now my videos start to go out to those type of people. And now it gets like a mind of itself, and it starts to grow. And now I've had people in the men in the ARC program, I've walked over there to do the devotion, and they'll be like, what? I used to see you down in Santa Monica on the internet doing your thing. And he goes, they can't believe that you're here. But they would tell me that because they saw my videos, that it like penetrated their heart. And then they decided to come to the Salvation Army because how I would talk about it. And it's pretty cool, like little testimony, you know, but and then also my wife and I have received a calling to become Salvation Army officers. So now we're actually going into seminary for the Salvation Army in 2 days. We're very excited about that. And for me, how my life looks today, you know, and for anyone out there, if you're still struggling in addiction, I want you guys to know that, like, I still have to work at it every day. I have to continue to. I have an NA app on my phone that I listen to meetings every other day on Zoom, right? Sometimes it's very hard for me how busy I am to get into a meeting, but in the morning I can wake up and I can put a meeting on Zoom so I can hear the fresh pain, so I don't forget that where I came from. So I continue to do that. I continue to literally, right when I wake up, I sit up and I thank God with gratitude, and I pause, I reflect. I don't ask for material, I ask for wisdom. And I say your will your will, Lord, and the strength to carry it out. And that's the acronym for pray right there. And I do that every single day, right? And I just trying to continue to be more Christ-like, continue to be a better man, continue to give back, continue to be at service, and continue to just be the Lord's hands and feet, because it's an amazing journey, because he's not looking for the qualified.
Okay.
God is looking for the available. And if I wake up every day and my hand is raised for God's will, then I'm gonna be in a place of joy, because there's something that happens when we walk with God. Our whole past makes sense. Every mistake we've ever made makes sense. And it's all good because we're at the point we are now. The second we walk out of God's will, literally the second you walk out, the same way I talked about how the world would tell me no after baseball, the second I step out of God's will is the second that my whole past doesn't make sense. I start to play the victim. I start to get weak. I start to make up excuses. I don't want to move forward. And I have so much shame and guilt. And you guys know that shame is probably the worst emotion that you can have on the planet. Shame will crumble you. So we just want to stay walking with the Lord. We want to stay vigilant, and we want to stay moving forward. We want to stay on that path. We want to continue to listen to the whispers of truth. And we just want to stay connected.
Yeah, amen. And encouraged, right?
Yeah, we want to encourage others.
You've got the encouraging gift, and I can see it in everything that you do every time. You know, I mostly see you on Facebook. I'm not a big social media person, and but you know, just it is encouraging just to see you like pumping your fist and saying, you know, just like how much you love the Lord, and it is encouraging, you know. And part of what I really appreciate about you and your story is how, you know, like I don't know how to say this, but there's a lot of people that get fired up about Jesus or about recovery, and it's like I don't need to do anything else. Like God rescued me from this, you know. But like for the people that when it lasts, they're doing the work also. You know, it's both, right? And I see that in you, that you're actually doing the work, you know, and I know that.
You're falling in love with, you know, the process.
Yeah.
So it's not because I'm clean, isn't like, that's not what it's about. It's about the everyday process is what's making me have joy.
Yeah.
It's the everyday, the waking up, the getting with God, right? The making the videos, the having the purpose, the helping the people in the food pantry, to help sharing the gospel to someone that needs it, to get to the meetings, to help this other person, to sponsor that person, to have people above you that give you advice. Like this is a whole life that you created that now gives you joy, because I'm finding joy in my journey. So like, as I was driving here, I felt joy. Listening to Caleb, right? I feel joy. I wash my clothes. I feel joy. Right now, my wife and I are packing up our whole apartment, but I still feel joy because I'm looking back in gratitude on where like I had been pulled from, right? It's just an absolute amazing thing. Like God has blessed me with an amazing wife who's amazing, who loves others. Like I share with Laura, I say, I'm not going to lie, Laura, like, you're the most Jesus of anyone I've ever met, right? Because sometimes she'll be like, you know, sometimes I don't understand this and I don't understand that, like as far as theology, right? And I'll be like, you're Jesus, like you're like you live out this every day, like you're so kind, you're so caring, you love others. Like you're amazing, right? And I look back how I shared earlier on all my other relationships and how all those ended up. Man, I'm blessed with this amazing wife on the same calling as I am, with an amazing story. She has an absolute amazing story, from homelessness, from where she is now, to being very, very successful in the executive world, and now then homeless, and now like getting her daughter back, all these things, right? Just an absolute amazing story within herself. And I get to wake up every day and this is my teammate. Like this is who I get to do life with, right? I mean, I'm blown away with where the Lord has taken me to and what he has taken me from. But like I said, this is all comes from like the process, right? This isn't like, you see it all the time early on in recovery, guys get in chapel and they're like, oh, hey, hallelujah, hallelujah, right? It's not, and I knew that when I went all in for Jesus, that I would get people to tell me that I was fake and this and that. But if you keep showing up, man, as time goes by, dude, it's you can't not deny the fact of what the Lord is like doing through this person.
That's right. Because it's solid because you got roots everywhere. You're tied to community, right? You're tied to practices and discipline and discipleship. You have, like you said, you have people that are over you. You have accountability. You have people that are befriending you. You have like your spiritual disciplines. I mean, it's this, like you said, it's a whole life that's like committed to like finding meaning, purpose, joy, calling, and ultimately that's committed to Christ. And it's beautiful, man. It's been beautiful to watch. I'm so glad. We've loved Laura for a long time, and we knew her back before she was getting clean and so, or when she was trying, but she was kind of still floundering. And so we've seen Laura, in some moments where it was great, and we've seen her in some moments that weren't so great. And it's just been such a joy to see her journey also and then to see how it's intersected with you and to get to know you through that. You guys are an inspiration and a blessing. And I just pray that I know that God's going to continue using you. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us today. Hopefully this is going to be something, again, that encourages others, that helps others, that continues to bring people to Christ, that helps people to get freed up from those chains of addiction, to find ways to stop being sort of trapped in that miserable cycle of self-hatred and trying to escaping with the thing that's kind of dragging you down. Hopefully people can follow in your footsteps and find their way towards Christ and towards sobriety.
Thank you. And if can I share one thing?
Yeah, please.
You guys out there listening, man, just know that you're never too far gone, that God can use you, and that he loves you, that we've been saved by the blood, the mighty blood of Jesus Christ, and you are forgiven for the one day that maybe you can't forgive yourself about. You are absolutely, totally forgiven, and we want to try to live in a life of obedience. We want to continue to be all in for the Lord, because this is where the true freedom comes from. When we're lukewarm, we continue to like go back and forth. But when you jump 10 toes down in for the Lord, there's this sense of freedom that happens because you line yourself up with God's will. But guys, I promise you, man, you're never too far gone. We serve a God of total restoration. He wants to put your status right back on your finger. And it's not going to be super easy at first, but it's well worth it. And I pray for every one of you out there that there's such a better life than being able to, wake up every day on the streets and wake up every day and struggle. And it doesn't have to do with anything around you or anything material. It's about you waking up and you changing from the inside to where you get to take yourself with you wherever you go. You get to take your relationship with Christ with you wherever you go, and you never have to feel alone again, guys. So I'm rooting for everybody out there.
Absolutely. All I'll add to that is amen. Thank you so much, Monty. All right. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to, give us some feedback. Let us know what you learned, how if you have other questions, and hey, maybe share this with somebody. Give somebody that needs a little hope, a little bit of inspiring story. All right. We'll catch you next time. Thank you.